Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. Hello out there to my KGRADB familia. Welcome back. Another Friday, another fun episode. Before we get started with today's episode, of course, I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. Want to remind you guys, this show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts, you can find this show. Make sure to leave us a rate review. It goes a very long way. I want to say thank you to our Patreon members, existing and future Patreon members. If you could join the Patreon for as little as $1 a month, you can help us support this channel. We are a public access channel. We're supported by viewers like you, so super chats and Patreons go a very long way. I want to say thank you to the moderators and to everyone in the live chat here on YouTube. What's up, everybody? Love you all. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to check out the links, not only for the merch store, not only for our Discord, but check out the links to all of our guests and hosts in the description below. So if you like anything that anybody's saying, all of their information and where you can find their work or opinions is down below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our co-host for the day, Mr. Michael Mataluni. Mr. Rather Be Squidding. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Fantastic. Good to see you, Lou. Your audio, it sounds like maybe your mic is not on.
Really?
I think it's coming through your computer. Perhaps.
Interesting. Well, thank you for the heads up.
No worries.
You're right.
All right.
Is. I'm Damn. See?
Oh, so much better.
Michael,
So much better.
This is why you need to be early to the pre-show because you notice things like that. You came in right as the show started.
I know. We're actually doing some renovations. I'm actually getting a door on my office.
Wait a second. Renovations on a new house? Can you
Never
call
gonna
it
stop,
renovations on a new house?
So this is the loft office, and we have an open area here. There's no door, so we're actually putting a door on. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, this way you don't have to hear my dogs, my children, my wife yelling at me.
Well, if your wife's yelling at you during the show, you're in real trouble. How you boys doing?
Fantastic,
Other than that,
man, it's good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's Friday.
Did Rather get in any trouble this week, or did he stay clean?
I've been a good squid this week, I think.
I don't know. That's a shady sentence in itself. I've been a good squid.
Fantastic.
Okay, well, today we've got a really fun guest. I'm interested in this gentleman on multiple levels. Alexei Novitzky, who was born in Cape Town, South Africa, and moved to the United States when he was 2. He's been learning in his dreams since he was 5 and is a lifetime practitioner of meditation. Alexei was raised in Florida, then went to the University of Colorado in Boulder and received his bachelor's in astrophysics, physics, planetary sciences, and astronomy with a minor in geology. Then went on to the University of South Florida and received a master's in mechanical engineering. Before Alexei graduated, he invented and patented a skateboard with a built-in storage, the skate case, and then went on to be the founder of Looshes Labs LLC in 2012, a small design and engineering company. He was then connected to the National Academy of Inventors, the Smithsonian Institute, and the USPTO. Alexei wrote a theory on reality that is consciousness-based and has presented Looshes Labs LLC 3 times at various Smithsonian museums, the Ripley Center, the National Museum of Air and Space, and the Museum of American History, alongside companies with Qualcomm, NASA, and Caterpillar. As recently as 2021, he's filed a patent for an interdimensional telescope and is looking for partners. He also is most known for his most famous project, the Mansion Yacht, an 84-foot yacht, and the skate case, of course, as we just talked about. So without further ado, let me bring on Alexei Novitzky. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How you doing?
Doing incredibly well. Now, obviously, we want to get into this interdimensional telescope. That sounds insane. But the thing that really caught my eye, because I'm also born and raised in Florida, so I'm a Florida boy. I'm very familiar. I've been around a lot of boats, and this mansion yacht that you designed and actually built, an 84-foot version of this boat. Now, I took a tour of it on YouTube, and I'll pull up this video as you kind of give me the story behind this thing. But the thing that shocked me the most is it was at the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. Now, if you know anything about boats, that's probably the biggest boat show on the planet. And I mean, you're talking about there's more boats in South Florida than there probably are cars. It's insane. But in that introduction, you said you guys were working on a 120-foot version of this boat. So I'm curious, where did you come up with this thing? And how did you convince anybody to build it? Because I'll be honest, it's the most awkward looking yacht I've ever seen. But from a design standpoint, it makes a ton of sense. And then the fact that you could raise this yacht on stilts above water is even crazier. So where did you come up with this idea, and who the hell gave you the funding to make this thing? Because it's awesome.
Well, okay, let's clear it up just a little bit here.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish I was the brainchild as far as like I own the boat. I wish this was my boat.
Got it.
You could say an engineering firm was approached, and I was basically the head designer at that time.
Okay. Got it.
So then that company, the owner of the boat, ended up hiring me out directly. So I was on site all the time, ended up doing basically all the design work, put everything into 3D. Worked on it from start to finish and did everything from 3D modeling to literally on-site welding. With the scraps, I was able to like build statues and take those around and stuff. There's a big story behind it. But basically the owner is interested in building several different types, and we've modeled a 120-foot version. We've modeled some that are basically like little islands. I call it Stela. And basically, there's all kinds of different types. 3 stories, 2 stories. I could go through a couple of renders real quick if you want to see some.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to pull it up on my end. My internet's running slow because I've got a couple of 100 windows open here. But yeah, if you want to pull it up, that would be great.
Yeah.
Because the thing that, I mean, okay, so how far, from a design standpoint, how far do these boats go? Like, how far can you take this? Because when I think of super yachts, I think of, okay, I could get from here to Spain on a super yacht. Can you do something like that in this boat?
With, you'd want to basically set up tugboats for something like that. It goes on its own power. It has, the bow thruster, the channel thruster. It can take it 6 knots, but basically you'd want to get towed out if you were trying to do something like that.
Right.
But the idea is once you park it, it lifts up. And now you're literally 10 feet above the water anywhere you want to be. Right now, I believe it's in Miami. I'm not sure exactly. They rent it out to different people.
Yeah, this thing seems like just a party on a platform. Literally.
Yeah, Michael Jordan had it for one of his fashion shows. Who else was it? It was one of those famous boxers. I think Muhammad Ali actually was on there.
Wow.
And then lately, the last person that might have rented it was Guy Harvey.
Guy Harvey. If you
I'm
guys
sorry,
don't
go
know
ahead.
the guy. No, I was gonna say Guy Harvey, the painter.
Yeah, an artist, I believe.
Yeah. He's known for his saltwater renditions and paintings.
Let's see.
He's probably the most famous artist in Florida for sure. But here's sort of a.
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, yeah, sorry, I'm not ready yet. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just pulling up this video that I saw on YouTube. Like I said, it's just like a tour of this boat. And if for you guys out there in Radio Land, it's essentially a square shaped yacht that's got pylons on each corner that could lift itself 10 feet above water. And it's a multi-decked 11 with this is like a mansion. When you say mansion, it's got 11-foot ceilings, a full kitchen, five estate rooms with king size beds, full bathrooms and amenities. Like, this thing is insane, and it's made out of stainless steel. So it is like a tank on water. It's insane. Look how big this thing is.
That's Bruno. He does. If you want to rent it out, talk to Bruno.
I
might be a little out of our price range.
Yeah, it might be a bit out of our price range. But I can see this thing I could maybe see sneaking onto this thing if you got a boat and there's other boats tied up to it. You might be able to get on depending on the security they got there. But this looks like a Columbus Day boat regatta dream. And basically the Columbus Day boat regatta is a boat race that nobody watches. They just go out and tie each other's boats up and just put kegs on everyone's boats. And it's just a huge party out in the ocean. So anyway, yeah, I know this has got nothing to do with UFOs, and everybody's like, "What the hell are we talking about here?" But
it was a UFO for a while.
This is really cool.
When people were driving down the bridge, I don't know if you're familiar with Tampa, but we built it next to the Gandy Bridge, and so you can see the construction of it, right? And when we had it on land, we lifted it up 17 feet, and people were driving by just trying to figure out what it was, taking photos, posting it. So it was like building a UFO in a way.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, very cool. So are these things actually are they being made to order now? Can you actually buy one?
Yeah. If you wanted to buy one, we could build you one.
That is
but at
cool,
this time,
man.
we have one of them, and it's being rented out, essentially for shows and kind of showing it off. Letting people know it exists. How
long does it take to construct a boat like this?
Well, the original one was built by hand on site, and we made a lot of changes while we were doing it. So about 2.5 to 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. Okay, so let's get off of boats because I'm sure I'm boring everybody half to death here.
It's pretty amazing, though.
But I love it
boat.
because I'm a huge fisherman, and I was like, man, I wonder if you could put some outriggers on this thing. Can you go fishing on this thing? It doesn't look like a fishing boat. This looks like just like, honey, I don't want to live on land anymore. Let's get something. And this could be an excellent solution to that.
Well, I mean, it's cheaper than buying a beachfront property on Miami Beach. You buy one of those and put it on the beach at Miami.
Oh my God. You want to talk about pissing off some millionaires? You pull up in this thing in front of their $4 million condo and just prop it there for 4 months. They're not going to be happy.
Right in between their perfect view of the sunset, just like right there.
Exactly, right? It's going to be right behind it.
Oh my God.
The glow of the sun.
So funny. Okay, so then let's get into your next venture, or actually, I think I'm sorry, I forget the name of the patent. The skate
case.
Skate case, yes. What came first, skate case or the ship?
The skate case. That was something I built. I was skating from class to class in college. My professor, his name was Franco Lodato, and he put the rubber grip on the toothbrush. And he put multiple razors on a razor blade. Right?
Oh my God. Okay, just for the kids out there, okay, you want to become infinitely rich for the rest of your life, invent something as simple as a rubber grip for a toothbrush, or like the little plastic ends for your shoelaces. Just something. I knew the guy who created the rollers, or I didn't know him, I met him, that boats go up onto that are on trailers.
Right.
And I was like, this guy's a millionaire forever. And he's the only person who makes them. He's the first guy who's made them. So it's not like there's other companies trying to rip off the boat roller. It's pretty much just a simple one-way thing. It's just like, damn, that's cool.
And it's so simple.
But, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea of the skate case.
So go ahead. So how did you get from that to the skate case?
Well, basically, I just wanted to, I didn't like having a backpack and a skateboard. And I basically didn't carry many books with me, and so I just wanted a place to put some books. So I made a skateboard that was a little bit thicker, and I could put my books inside of it and open and close it, And my professor just said, you need to patent that right now. And he connected me. Actually, I met with him after class for the rest of the semester, and then he helped me write the provisional patent. But then he connected me to the Office of Patents and Licensing over at USF. And we filed for the non-provisional and we got it patented.
That's awesome. So basically that makes sense on how you're doing a lot of work with kids, because you're like, hey, I made a skateboard. Check this out. You can put your books in it and write it.
Well, I've also grew up doing martial arts. And so basically you could say my family outside of school and stuff like that was the Martial Arts Academy. And so just progression through that world, you become a martial arts instructor, and then you become the after school martial arts guy, right? So I was picking up kids from school and bringing them to the studio, and then I would do innovation workshops with them over the weekend. So I was teaching them how to do 3D modeling and make video games and stuff like that.
I feel like the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world like ripped off your life story.
Yeah. Have you seen Dos Equis?
Yes. Yeah. He's the most interesting guy in the world, right? Yeah.
Oh man. Or they could call him for a new campaign because they tried to replace him with this other guy. I was like, this guy sucks. This guy is not interesting at all. But Alexei here, you got a shot, buddy.
I do my best.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's Rather, did you have any questions on either the boat or the
Both very cool things. I'm really looking forward to dig into the physics kind of stuff that you're working on.
Yeah, the interdimensional telescope, maybe.
I mean, what better time than now, right?
Well, I think it all lines up, right? And that's part of the whole, just the way the world works. You can say the synchronization of energy.
Well, I am interested. I mean, how did you get from the skate case in this yacht to now? And I mean, how is Looshes Labs looking at this topic, you know, comparatively different to other entities that are now starting to prop up out there?
I've been looking at it since from my own point of view, and not to sound naive, but I've been trying to remain as dumb as possible. Meaning I gather the information, but I don't see it as fact or truth, or that's all there is, right? Like a good example was I learned, about relativity when I was studying astrophysics, and my professor says nothing can go faster than light. And so then I walk up to him right after class, and I just said, well, that's just the fastest source of information exchange for human consciousness. That doesn't mean nothing can go faster than light. So already right then, at that moment, it just made sense that our physics is not necessarily correct. It's limited to our perception, clearly, right?
Well, I'm curious, what deficiencies do you think there are in current physics? What kind of examples are you trying to prove by your own theories, and where do you see current physics kind of going wrong? And
I don't think physics is wrong by any means. I think what I've drawn up is completely different. Physics that's being built today is definitely based off of the material world, and so that's basically everything you can touch, taste, smell, and feel. But what I like to do is, from my point of view, there is only perception. To say that there is anything other than my biased perception, you could say your biased perception and the biased perceptions of everyone else, to say that anything else exists is an assumption. So the very fundamental thing is ultimately our consciousness.
Right. It's interesting because physicists talk about this too, about the instrument bias, right? Because all of our instruments are designed to enhance what we can sense, what we know is what we can be aware of, whereas we don't know quite what sort of instruments to design that would understand things that we're completely unaware of. But I think that's what the cool thing about what physics does is it's constantly poking and prodding at what we're illuminating or exaggerating our own senses so we can start to touch things that maybe weren't aware that existed before, like the quantum realm. I mean, we had no idea the quantum realm existed prior to physics really poking at it.
Right, I totally agree, and that's one of the first points I make in the very first book I wrote. I wrote that one 7 years ago, basically. It's called Your Influence in Space, and I go through the evolution of the human senses, and I say that we have certain senses from evolving on Earth, then we have certain senses from evolving around a star, and then we have certain senses from evolving within an expanding universe. But the point that I make is basically, now imagine we didn't evolve with eyes at all, and we only had ears, right? Our entire world and understanding would be 100% based off of acoustic waves. And so you could say we might think that is the fastest source of information exchange.
Great point. Yeah, that's really well said. Yeah. Go ahead, Rather. Look at his eyebrows.
Well, I think that's I listened to your one of your videos, and I think that's an interesting point, but I don't necessarily think it's entirely accurate, right? Because if we did evolve without eyes, we like we use radio, right? And we can't see radio, and we leverage that. Like I think that if we didn't have eyes, we probably would be able to figure out that there is some other electromagnetic phenomenon known as light that, you could trigger something and that could, create an audio message at the end of that, light traveling. So I'm not entirely convinced by that argument, but I do think it's an interesting thought experiment.
No, I do see what you're saying there too. And you could even say that feel, right, the sense of temperature difference might eventually give us the indication that infrared energy exists. And then maybe somehow we would come across the electromagnetic spectrum. But so maybe that's where we are right now, is understanding that quantum potentialities exist. And so how do we use this next sense, right? How do we use this newest sense that we gained?
Yeah, and that's kind of where the like I'm willing to believe that there might be fundamental forces that we can't really experience or comprehend. But the question I have is how can we get a handle on something if we can't perceive it? And is that kind of what you're trying to do?
Well, that's 100% the point. That's why you could say that my physics is completely different, because I talk about perceivable universes. Like we have a certain tuning, we're a certain vibration. We can never perceive certain things. And so what I talk about is literally layers of perceivable dimensions that already harmonize with human consciousness.
Would you have a problem with the statement saying that some of your theories might be more philosophical than scientific, or does that rub you the wrong way?
No, but at the end of the day, my theory can be tested scientifically, and you can make technologies. So I think once the tests happen, at that point, the philosophical aspect of it kind of goes out the window, and yeah, now it's scientifically proven.
When you say my physics, what are you exactly referring to?
Just the model I have created.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, you know how we basically live in a universe, right? And a lot of people are familiar with the idea that, I have a 3D model opened. Can I open that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, let me do a share screen. I'm going to share an empty screen, and hopefully I can move this model there.
Yep.
Yep.
See it.
Okay, cool. So the easiest way to think of it is we live in the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how everyone describes the universe as like the smooth field of green energy. But, in long distances, the universe is curved, and it wraps around itself. And so at the end of the day, our universe is orbiting a greater structure. And so when you think about just normal formations of objects, you would have an orbit that's more inward, and you would have an orbit that's more outward. And when it comes to the quantum relationship, you could potentially say that the energy we experience in our layer that is the universe stems from inner energy adding from outer energy, right? Because you have different energies here. And so depending on how close you are to the center is how stretched and crunched the energy you're experiencing would be as it reaches that distance from the center of time.
So this theory is built on the supposition that the universe is curved, and therefore there should be inner and outer universes that are wrapping around it. Is that the idea?
Not necessarily that the universe is curved, but that the universe is in an orbit around the center of a structure.
And can you explain where that idea comes from?
The Earth orbits the sun. Or let me repeat. We orbit the center of the Earth. The Earth orbits the center, the gravitational, you know what I'm saying? Okay, keep it simple. The Earth orbits the sun orbits a galaxy. At that point, we think the universe is expanding, right? But at the most rawest experience, because all we have is experience, we have a field of energy and we have a consciousness. And so if you get into relativity, you understand that the relationship of energy to your experience is 100% related to velocity. So your frame of reference in relationship to a field of energy, the most rawest experience. And so you could say that matter would be energy that is on that. So now let me take you to another drawing here. Back to this one. Well, actually, this isn't the best drawing, but it kind of shows what I'm saying. So you can imagine the future would be on the left here if we're orbiting to the left. So the most raw, and you could think of yourself as in a gravitron, right? Where energy between you and the center is being crunched to you, and energy behind you is essentially being stretched away. So if we have a singular energy, and we need to create all experiences. We need to create matter, light, sound, touch, feel, taste, and smell. You could say that energy between you and the center of time, when you're approaching it, is being crunched and stretched away. And then as you leave that spot of perception, energy is reverting back to normal, right? It's Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Matter and light are only differentiated when perceived. So we basically have a consciousness perceiving a field of energy.
Yeah, I guess I'm still a little bit hung up on the concept of something outside of our universe, right?
Right.
Traditional physics talks about the universe essentially being all of the, the space-time and all the matter that could possibly be. And it is very difficult, even for physicists to explain what the universe is expanding into. It's kind of almost like a paradox. So in your theory, are you kind of saying that there's, outside of our universe, there's a different space-time, or exactly how do you make the distinction from,
what's outside, what's inside? That's the thing too, is the universe really expanding, or is perception being stretched more and more as our habitable spiral of perception drifts inward naturally? Because as we naturally drift towards the center here, the universe would appear to be expanding. Where is it? Yeah. So if the further you are from the center, you're undergoing a less pull from a black hole ultimately. So if you were to be drifting inward, that would be the same as perception getting bigger. So, that's where it's what is matter, what is light. The physical that we experience now is our experience. It's our biased position. So it's challenging to see, but once you get it, there's only conscious experience. Everything else is
but isn't that the anthropocentric position that you're trying to get away from? Because that was your original thesis, is that if we evolved without eyes, we wouldn't know light exists. So doesn't saying that consciousness is all there is, doesn't that seem a little anthropocentric to be basing the thesis on?
That's where it's so challenging, right? We live in this world. I would have to, I can't argue that statement, at the end of the day, all we have is our perception, though, and we have to do the best with what we have.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess from this model, it shows a potential relationship between the quantum layer of perception and the field of energy. Let me see if I can show you what I mean by that. And this more relates to this right here, where it has the Hertz centers, right? Because we live in the universe, right? And from our waking perception, that's the alpha and beta state of consciousness. You see what I'm saying there?
Go a little deeper. If you could try to simplify it for us dummies, that'd be great.
So it's all harmonic resonance. Consciousness and perception is fundamental. And you could say that human harmonics of consciousness range from delta to fast gamma.
Okay.
Delta would be 1 hertz, and fast gamma, you could say, could be related to 80 hertz. Our waking perception, because that's all we have, right, is perception. Our waking perception is alpha and beta. And so I call that the universe. That's our waking perceivable universe, 20 hertz center. And that's a certain distance from the center of time, right? Because what is a harmonic?
When you say the center of time, what do you mean by that?
the center of our most primitive orbit imaginable. So we orbit the center of, we orbit Earth, Earth orbits Sun, Sun orbits galaxy, galaxy theoretically orbits structure, that structure orbits a structure. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, you're at our greatest perception, which relates to the speed of light.
Connect me there.
It almost sounds like a Russian doll of time here.
Exactly.
A tessellation of Santas.
And that's what I call the 5D multiverse, is the layer, the densities of conscious experience that are inward and outward. So as you go more inward, experience becomes denser and denser, and you gain higher harmonics of conscious density.
Jazz asked an interesting question here, and I think it's one of the fairest questions, because I think, when I first studied quantum physics, my immediate assertion was that the conscious observer was manifesting reality, was collapsing the waveform, and was constructing reality. And now when you talk to a very advanced physicist, they'll say, well, no, that's not exactly that's an anthropocentric way of viewing it. That's not what's actually happening. Where do you land on that idea?
I would need to go to a different diagram for that, but you can imagine,
feel free.
I'll stop sharing this one if you want me to.
Well, we could go to full screen here with us.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, so did you end up asking Jazz's question as far as, so if there wasn't an intelligence
that's the question.
observing, okay.
So if there was no intelligence observing it, the universe wouldn't exist. Is that your conjecture?
Our perception of the universe is related to our position and motion.
Okay.
So if we didn't exist, our universe would not be being perceived.
Right, but it doesn't mean it wouldn't exist, and it doesn't mean it wouldn't exist in the current form.
A tree fell in the woods,
there's a black hole of, I still think ultimately at the end of the day, there's a giant black hole that somehow got started by God's God. I mean, I don't even know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like this is all going a little bit over my head, but it is interesting. And well, I mean, I think that the thing that really would tie it back into sound scientific theatry is what you alluded to earlier.
Scientific theory, is that a thing?
I'll make it a thing.
Scientific theory, yeah. He'd rather just made it a thing, Michael.
But science works.
If there were no
rather
in the universe, that word would not exist.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. I'm
now we're resonating. Sorry.
What predictions this theory makes that standard physics doesn't?
Well, it says that we can perceive different layers of reality. In our we can tune our alpha beta state to fast gamma layer of reality, or other layers of reality.
So what would that mean if I were to tap into another layer of reality?
Well, you would be literally perceiving a different universe. So I guess Skinwalker Ranch is a good example, because I think in one of the episodes, one of the guys talks about a vortex kind of opening up, or an orange vortex, and within the vortex he literally sees blue sky. And so basically the way I see it is that magnetic vortex is coming in from a denser realm of experience, and at a certain harmonic ratio, that vortex properly harmonizes with your consciousness to where you're literally, now it's harmonized properly and you can see the next layer of reality. And the easiest way to describe the harmonics of perception is to think about, like, what is a wave? Like how big is a wave, and what is a wave? And the way I see it is each harmonic is related to acceleration towards center at light speed while flying tangential, right? So from that concept alone, you can create distances from the center of a structure that give you just different distances of experience.
So how might I tap into these different harmonics and realities? Is it by meditation, or?
Well, so the easiest way to think about it is each harmonic resonance in your brain gives the user a different experience. Like when I'm in a delta wave, I'm in deep sleep, right? So like deep sleep. And then as I start to wake up, I go into theta, and I might have dreams, but my harmony is increasing. And I believe theta, is 2 times. So if you want to say delta, I start all my centers from alpha being at 10. So by the time you get to delta, you're at 2.5. But so if you multiply delta by 2.5, you get to theta. That's 5 hertz. That gives the user, the human being, a completely different experience within the fluid of time. If you multiply 5 hertz times 2, you're in alpha state. That again is a different harmony, right? You're picking up different signals. And now you're awake, you're in our universe. When you're in beta, that's 20, you're awake, you're in our universe. When you hit 40, that's slow gamma. At that point, you start to have out-of-body experiences, right? You start to see the world a little differently. At
Now,
80 hertz.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question about that? So you're saying you're having out-of-body experiences, but somebody who's a materialist would say, no, you're just experiencing your mental state in a different form or function. So,
right.
But you obviously believe that you are leaving the physical body and moving into another universe. And can you give us an idea of like what sparked that for you, or what makes you believe that?
Well, once you hit 80 hertz, you're at the fast gamma, and that's 100%. So it's all brain harmony, and experience is fundamental. For someone who's awake in an alpha beta state to see my body, that doesn't mean that my consciousness is here and that that's my reality, or that that's my harmonic.
But it doesn't not mean that either, right? So
the body is that means the body is there. My body doesn't just disappear,
right? But you're saying the consciousness, and I'm not arguing for or against. I'm just curious what your perspective is and why you believe that. So my question would be, because you're arguing that the consciousness is leaving the body at that would you say beta state?
Slow gamma and fast gamma.
Slow gamma and fast gamma. Is there anything that you can point us to that scientifically makes you believe that, or is this a hypothesis that you're trying to test?
It's a hypothesis that I had, which kind of gets reaffirmed by Leslie Kean's work, because she studied a lot of near-death experiencers as well as reincarnation stories. And then also you could relate that to DMT experiencers. And then also to Stephen Greer's work when it comes to being able to perceive the different dimensions of experience and fast gamma state. The way I see it is that fast gamma is it's hard to say it is without having scientific experiments in our awake state, right, to prove it. But you could say that fast gamma is that next, it's heading into the direction of the afterlife. And so magnetic vortices can literally harmonize denser realms of experience with our awake state. And so when it comes to experiencing ghost or people that have passed away through seances, it has a lot to do with creating vortices, and it has a lot to do with the harmonics of the brain.
What sort of tests do you think we could start? Like, how do we begin to bring this into the scientific realm? How do we begin to test these hypotheses?
So the one test that would be extremely biased and untestable and unproducible, and there would be a lot of complaining about, would be if you were to stimulate the brain through transcranial magnetic stimulation to create 80 hertz, but now that person's having a biased experience. So we need to have our alpha beta state, our normal physical universe. We need to have our cameras take photos into another dimension. And so that can be done with an interdimensional telescope.
Here we go.
by using what I call light state theory, to create an expanded light state, to have because each one of those layers within that fluid of time is basically a distance from the center of time. And so by stretching, crunching, and twisting space, you can create vortices that have those denser layers expand, slow down their orbits. Now they're harmonizing with human consciousness, and they're in our waking universe.
Okay, so bring me back, because I feel like I was so close to getting what you're saying, but I don't. So again, in order to test this, we're talking about define what you're attempting to construct in order to peer through the looking glass?
In the most layman's terms ever, a magnetic vortex.
A magnetic vortex. And what is that?
That would be a funnel of electromagnetic energy.
Got it. How does one create such a vortex?
I know of two different devices. One is called a Rodin coil. Have you ever heard of those? The Rodin coil?
I haven't.
And it's a specially wrapped electromagnetic system that sends like the energy through in a pattern that swirls up space-time. But the one that I see being the most commonly used, right, is the magic square. The concept of magic squares. Have you heard of that?
No.
And so basically that's a way to create a harmonious, I would have to show a picture of a magic square, but the easiest way to relate that is a man named John Searle, who also learns in his dreams, basically came up with using the concept of a magic square to create what's called the Searle effect generator. And from that, he has created a free energy device, essentially. But the point being is that the magic square creates a magnetic vortex as well. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Yeah.
Okay. And is this something that, like, where are you in the process of implementing such devices and using them to test these hypotheses? Well,
the fundraising.
Okay. And how are you doing that?
At this point, I'm making some noise. I'm getting out there. I'm hoping that the right person comes around. I mean, ultimately, that's what it's about, the synchronicity.
Got it. And so you're looking to, and you have designs of the device that you'd like to create for potential investors to poke at. Like, where are you at within the design phase?
In the specific design phase, I have a design that's good enough for a patent pending, which means very stick figure-y. When it comes to investors, they'd like to see something that's obviously a little more mathematically drawn out. Hey, we want to see cost for each parts, and that's where I don't 100% know. Right. And so when you're asking how much does it cost to create a magnetic vortex, well, I don't know, because it could cost $500. It could be really, really cheap. But from my understanding, I'm going to need more energy than that, and I'm going to need a bigger power source.
So obviously you need to put a number out there. What sort of number are you starting with?
Look, if someone's serious, I would need to at least see like $1 million check. That way I could stay busy for a good amount of time.
What kind of power requirements?
Some people to come in,
What kind of power requirements do you think you would need for something like this?
Probably like a nuclear reactor or like a Searle effect generator.
So you need the Department of Energy.
Yes. I know of some companies, they try to run off their grid and they're already having problems. Like they're trying to get like the TECO is the local power company here.
Yeah.
And, they try to get them to set up all kinds of stuff. And they've been waiting over 6 months already for them to set up power requirements. So it would need to be a serious project.
Wow.
But this would be for humanity, to literally look into another layer of reality and take a photo.
We've got some questions and comments from the audience. The first is from Infinity Tie Center. I want to hear him talk about learning in his dreams. He mentioned that a couple of times. We obviously heard that, right? But what do you mean specifically by that?
I wake up knowing how to do things I didn't know how to do before. So basically, the best example that and it's within the family was I was learning how to ride a bicycle, but I was never successful at it. And I woke up from a dream. I went straight to my brother. I was 5 years old. My brother was 6. And I said, I know how to ride a bike. And he said, show me. Right. So he took the training wheels off my bicycle, and without anyone else around or anything like that, I just jumped on my bicycle and started riding circles in the garage. And so my dreams are very, very real, very vivid. And everybody learns differently. Some people learn visually. Some people learn by sound. You could say I learn by feel. And so I wake up knowing the feeling of the entire action, the motion, the move. I know the move when I wake up, if that makes sense. And the move can relate to anything, like anything that I'm trying to learn. And so I started trying to develop this skill. I don't know if you guys have heard of Uri Geller.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was 10, I bought his little packet. And it basically was like a little box. It was a book, and it came with I think a dowsing crystal, some colored cards for remote viewing, and all those kinds of things. And so for me, my life, remote viewing always been very real. Telekinesis, learning in your dreams, all that stuff, very real. And so that's been another reason why I've been trying to develop a new physics, you could say, that helps explain how that actually works. And a lot
I'm curious about you. So is it your kind of conjecture that dreams are then like another layer of actual reality?
I was going to say, what happened to your voice there, Rather? You sounded like a Muppet for a second.
He's got a squid in his throat.
Yeah.
I would say yes, in a way, but no, also because some dreams are different than other dreams. And it's so hard to describe, right? Because when you're dreaming, your brain does go back into beta sometimes, from what I understand. Like there's all kinds of different harmonics going off when you're dreaming. But for the primary, like the primary point, most of the point of it or whatever, when you're in your deep sleep, you're in your delta and you're literally having no dreams, no conscious experience. Theta state is when you're starting to wake up. And that's like when most people have some type of extraterrestrial encounter is their theta state. So the theta harmonic is super important when it comes to harmonizing with a different layer within reality, because there is the physical body. And so when there is chemical reactions, and to say that like delta, now your physical body's not actually doing anything, I don't know, but there are different layers of perceivable energies, and they can harmonize with human consciousness.
Allegedly.
And so, well, I mean, what is happening at the quantum electromagnetic state? Forget all the physical. If you just think only energy, and you think the doubling nature of reality and how just things harmonize, there's from 2.5 to 5, you're getting an extra wave in there. There's an extra node. From 5 to 10, now you've picked up 4 nodes. I'm thinking very linearly in a line, just an antenna on a stick. So when it comes to harmony and resonance and energy, I do think that there are layers, and I would think that the next one that we could potentially experience would relate to 160 hertz, which I call the omega verse, right? So even faster than fast gamma. So that would be theoretically testable as well.
Have you engaged with the scientific community on these ideas at all?
When I first started my work, it's not that I've received kickback, but more like not the support that I'm looking for. It's like you can show your posters, but you're not allowed to talk. But when it comes to, like I said, the synchronicities, I have randomly run into a lot of, you could say, military personnel that are working on projects, and they ask what I do, and then they see my books, and they're like, "Well, come meet with us," kind of thing. And it's not that I've had verification, but in my opinion, I've had validification by having them purchase my book after like the meeting. So it's not that it's wrong, but it's not that it's right. It's that it's on the right track. And that's why I don't say that this theory is 100%, right? Like no theory is 100%. There are definitely holes in it, and I already see room to improve.
Like what? What would you? Where are you looking? Like where are you poking holes in your own work where you believe it could be better or more complete?
Currently, for my opinion, the time dilations between the different layers of reality. Okay. I think that because there's so many different ways to look at it, you could see it as how many times does the harmonic pop up? How many times does it actually orbit? Is it related to the distance from center? I mean, ultimately, our map says that time dilations are related to velocity. But if you're inside the Noviverse, which is the denser realm of experience, is it just solely related to that? So in my opinion, I go with arc length at this time.
Arc length?
Yeah, because if you, or like,
what is that?
Like the arc around a circle.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we're orbiting, say we just orbit 20 times a second, if something is orbiting at 10 times a second, it's experiencing half the amount of time because it's covering half of the arc. Okay. Which would be related to velocity and distance. So a combination of the two. So time dilations, I think, would need a little bit of work. And so that would actually give us the time dilations between the different layers of reality. And from those, that's when we see when the dimensional alignments would be happening. And that would be related to tidal locking of just natural energies as well.
Deep Prasad said orbit is based on macroscopic observables, such as distance and time. You can't really have time as something to orbit around. And then said, nicely said, Luis, when I think my Russian doll analogy seemed to click. Thank you. Because I'm trying. I mean, like, if Squidding and Michael are having a hard time keeping up, I'm like, whoa, okay. Thank God you guys are here. Thank God I booked Alexei for Friday. Because, yeah, this is, I mean, it's hard for me to keep up. I'm just being honest. But then again, I don't have a physics background at all. So
no, I understand. And it's challenging even for people that do, because I speak, I made up my own words. So
yeah,
that's right. Rather does that too.
Yep.
Well, to answer that question, that would be our 40 time. In order, you need time to experience something, so you can't be orbiting time to see it. That would be our 4D experience of time, where there's past, present, and future. What I draw up is called the crystal of time, which is basically a giant black hole that contains all of time, but in the 5D sense, to where the quantum future, not the future that manifests within our realm, but the quantum future already exists in the now. The quantum past exists in the now, right? So there's a difference between 4D time and 5D time.
Now I'm kind of understanding what you're saying, because when you say that, it reminds me of the cigarette analogy, of course, that Lou loves to famously use all the time, where at the cherry, you've got different things popping off at the exact same time the thing is burning. So it's almost as if the entirety of everything is happening within that burn, the past, the present, the future, and that includes in different dimensions and different realities as well.
Right.
So that is interesting.
Exactly. Well, because we're being manifested from inner energy and outer energy. So any action we actually make now is a stream of energy that's going all the way to the center of time, or whatever. You could call it the center of another structure. Like we call our galaxy the galaxy. We would just need another name for it.
Well, when you talk about go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to ask Luis if he got Jazz's $50 super
I did.
chat.
Yeah, we're going to get to it. We save all the super chats. We'll read them. And yeah, it was going to be one of the next things I get to. Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead, brother.
I'm curious about
Luis is explaining how the show works to me, because I'm never here.
Because you're never here. Yeah. You're catching up as we do it live. So welcome to the show, Michael. Oh my God. You're like so helpful today, but also completely useless.
The paradox of Michael. But Alexei, I'm curious to know more about your concept of the 5 dimension of time. Typically when we talk about dimensions, we talk about the 3 spatial dimensions, and then time being in another dimension. And when I kind of think about, a potential extra dimension, a 5th dimension, I'm usually thinking of along the lines of an extra spatial dimension, or kind of some place that you could go and then you'd see a bunch of different timelines, all the timelines that exist, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your take of the 5th dimension. You mentioned a 5th dimension of time. Are you kind of talking of another spatial dimension, or? Yeah, I'd love you to elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, there's 2 ways to think of it. And when you think of it like that, basically you could say it would be the dimension inward and the dimension outward. So as you become more and more compact, there's more dimensions at a certain point of size. And that's where it has to do with the harmonic resonances. And they're not dimensions right? String theory has already 11 dimensions or something like that. I'm talking about dimensions of conscious experience. So we can go outward. If we were to expand our light state, meaning our atoms, until we expanded our entire existence to harmonize with the next set of harmonics, that would be the dimension outwards, a perceivable dimension that's outwards. Now, if we were to compact everything until everything harmonizes again one more time, that would be a dimension inwards. And so when it comes to our experience within the universe, we're literally a creation of inner energies and outer energies, at the quantum level, and we're bubbling up like a soup, constantly manifesting from overlapping energies from inner and outer. So if you expand outward, now you're in the outer layer, and more energies coming in. It's so hard to describe, but basically, the stillness of the outer layers basically influences the habitats of the inner layers, as the energy is basically being sucked into the center of this black hole.
So it's almost kind of like a fractal nature of reality. Would that be a accurate description?
100%. The fractal nature is the easiest way to relate it. And the reason why I say acceleration towards center at light speed while flying tangential has 100% to do with the fractal nature of reality. Because at that point, the doubling nature of, say I'm a distance 5 away from the center. If I were to be 2.5 away, if I wanted to orbit twice as fast, I would need to be 1/4 the distance away. And so that basically shows the fractals of reality that do exist. So I have a drawing of all this stuff too. If you want me to open that one up.
Do it.
Yeah,
all right,
definitely. While you're doing that, I've also got Sparky Lady said, this is getting interesting. Keep it up, guys. Thank you so much for the $10 donation. Galvino says, gamma is gamma. It's like saying slow speed of light and fast speed of light. What do you think of that?
What creates a harmonic?
What you're asking us? What creates harmonic?
Two notes in the same key. Two different notes in the same key.
Let's see.
And I don't know if I agree with that comment, because I think, when you're talking about brain waves, gamma is kind of a range, right?
Right.
And I could be wrong about that, but
let's see if this will work.
Artisan Tony for $10 says we can build it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I mean, Artisan Tony is an AutoCAD expert, so you might want to hit him up. Oh, there you go. Look, Artisan Tony. I think Artisan Tony hooked me up with you, actually. Galvino has a question as well. What frequency does the clothing of ghosts vibrate at?
80 hertz, but in your resonance, in your harmonic resonance in your brain.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if you were joking at first there. You were pretty serious coming off of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that has to do with the seances and stuff. You guys were mentioning Leslie Keene kind of earlier before we got started.
Yeah.
I feel like if you were to ask her, she might be like, there is that's where I want to talk to her. I need to get in touch with her too.
Well,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, isn't sort of our perceivable world, and guys, I don't know, maybe you can back me up or totally call me out on this, but like, for example, my desk, it's not, I mean, I'm not even touching it, right? Because there's a thin pocket of air or atoms that don't even touch, but I'm perceiving it as touch.
Right.
And that these atoms are vibrating out of frequency that create this desk. So why can't that sort of idea of frequencies and vibrations also apply to multiverses? And how, I guess, are what you're trying to say that you're trying to figure out what these frequencies are and then translate that through a telescope?
Oh, let me show you. You have to understand the dimension of conscious density. And so that's where 80 hertz is not just 80 hertz, like that question was mentioning before. You have to think of acceleration towards center at light speed while flying tangential. I have this simple drawing. I don't think this is exactly the best one to show, but it'll give an idea.
Yeah. What do you
can you see that?
Yep. Pulling it up. There you go.
Yeah. So basically, if the outer ring, the yellow ring, was circling at one time, right, and you have the inner ring circling, let me see this way. Each conscious harmonic has a certain, let me show you a different drawing. This isn't going to help. Yeah, that's not going to help.
No worries.
I want to explain this properly. So I have this book opened.
Kathy Splash, did you say there's no market for Rather's bathwater? Is there? I actually think there could be a market for that.
A market for Rather's bath water,
Correct.
like
Yes.
bath water that
Well,
he
obviously,
sat in.
yeah, post squid. Yes. Exactly.
Well, listen, there's a woman who sells her farts on through TikTok, and apparently has made a couple $1 million off of this. So rather, if you want to start bottling up your bath juice, listen,
yes,
we'll put it on the merch store.
Brand it Squid Ink. That's genius. Eventide.
Holy cow!
Genius.
Excellent. I absolutely.
I didn't think this show could get any weirder, but
well, we
Wrong again.
Limits.
Okay, so this is a more realistic view here. So when you have the delta wave, and it has the average harmonic frequency of 2.5 hertz, and in a previous book called The Crystal of Time, I realized that the habitable zones are related to acceleration towards center at light speed while flying tangential.
Wait. Slow down. Habitable zones of what?
Human consciousness.
Okay. So we're talking about human consciousness. We're not talking about life on Earth, right?
We're talking about consciousness's ability to harmonize with the electromagnetic world. And well, what?
Okay.
So I guess the question is, that's the whole thing in itself, because space prepares itself before matter manifests. Right? So, and that can be seen by looking at all the different relativistic frames of motion that exist when looking at a single point in space. So if you're, just to stay scientifically accepted right now, if I'm traveling 0.9999999% of the speed of the light, the wave would already be extended almost, to the edge of that distance, but the wavelength would be near almost zero because the light is so stretched. So when you take a quick snapshot of all the different scenarios, you get a bell curve associated with energy and distance. And so what is matter, what is light? Aren't they the same thing, just being perceived in two different ways, all created by a single motion? And so that's where it comes down to at what speed does an electron shoot from an atom? I know it travels the speed of light. I mean, a photon. I know it goes the speed of light, but how fast does it accelerate?
Okay. From zero, or from its original state. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, from its original orbit from around an atom to the next atom. What's the rate of acceleration?
I would assume instant.
It instantaneous. It's accelerating at the speed of light. And so when you think about a rocket ship taking off of Earth, if you're accelerating at exactly 9.8 meters per second, you're not going to take off. You're going to be perfectly weightless on the Earth. But if you go a little bit faster, you'll take off, right? And so basically I say the difference between matter and light is a result of your accelerative frame of motion. And so that's why it ends up going into the crystal of time, where you see that there's the habitable zones around the center of time, which relate to acceleration towards center at light speed while flying tangential.
What does flying tangential mean?
Flying 90-degree angle. So like in an orbit.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we're in an orbit. Like instead of accelerating towards the center of the Earth at 9.8 meters per second, our universe is accelerating towards the center of time at the speed of light.
It's just.
And so
is the center of time also the center of these different layers that you're speaking of as well?
Yes, they're all one giant black hole.
Okay, so we're speeding into a black hole. Sounds like we're going down a drain.
It's interesting that you say that, and you've mentioned that a couple of times. We have a gentleman who comes on the show often from Sonic Gravity, and one of the things Bradley Voorhees, one of the things he talks about is he believes that we're actually on the surface of a black hole, and three-dimensional reality is a projection coming off that black hole. Are you guys in the same ballpark there?
I would say we're really close to the same ballpark, but
wow. I think we just discovered something here.
Gotta hook these guys up,
right?
Say again.
There would be inner shells that we would harmonize with too, and also outer shells. And those would all be like similar to like planets orbiting a star, and they would eventually be caught up in tidal locking, right? Where you have like a 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 relationship between the different layers and orbits.
So then as we get closer to sort of this drain hole or this black hole, does that mean that our likelihood of colliding with other things, smashing with other things, is increased as we get closer to the center? And
Yeah.
and could that be what people are perceiving as the phenomena?
So as we drift closer to center, we gain higher harmonics of conscious density. Yeah. And so what I'm thinking more is an alignment that occurs. Because when you look at all the different orbits, if it's like a 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 relationship, there ends up being a relationship where we align with outer energies, right? Because it'd be like a syzygy of planets, but a syzygy of dimensional energies. And the one that would be coming up right now would be related to the 2,000-year cycle, which is 2,178 years. That's where my correction is. In another paper, I have it as like 2,030 years, but I think it's closer to 2,178 years. Would be at a dimensional alignment. And when there's dimensional alignments, literally your consciousness is like peaking. It's like, think about waves in an ocean and how they add. You can think of quantum waves and how they would add. So it'd be like a big wave coming in, adding to all the little waves, giving us like a bigger peak when all the dimensions align. So it'd be like a peaking of quantum energy on 2,178-year alignments based off of those orbits within the fluid of time, which is energy from outside and inside of our universe.
Whew.
Wow.
Right?
Trying to keep up here, man.
Jazz Shaw had a question here, and thank you for being patient. And I'm sure he was screaming at the top of his lungs. Thank you for the $50 donation. Does this mean he has to do a shot himself?
I believe it does.
I mean, either way, I believe he's taking a shot. Don't matter. Really want to focus on this, if possible. Current Big Bang theory says that there was no matter in the first seconds after the Big Bang. Who or what was observing that?
Is that a question for me?
I think so.
Well, I mean,
it was based on, I think, because we were talking earlier about the observer and the observer's relationship to the wave function.
So earlier I was talking about space preparation, how empty space needs to prepare itself before matter actually manifests from the quantum state into reality.
And what do you mean by that?
My energy already exists at the edge of the universe. In a frame of infinite velocity, let's just pretend we can go faster than light. At a frame of infinite velocity, my light already exists at the edge of the universe, but it's so stretched that the wavelength would be near zero and the energy would be near zero. And so if you wanted to think about how the future would be coming into it, so if you start from a moment of absolutely no experience and you want to say, let's move forward in time, you would have scaled waves that have already been prepared crunching into the now moment. It's really hard to see, but you have to look at how space prepares itself in all the different relativistic frames of motion and time, and then move forward. And so I call that space preparation. It's how empty space prepares itself before matter, right? And so empty space prepares itself, but then you also have human consciousness projecting outward. So you have empty space coming towards you, consciousness going outward. The overlapping of the two creates nodes of manifesting matter. But so that's how we learn we need to be accelerating towards center at light speed. And so you could say that when we first started approaching this black hole, so who observed the Big Bang? It was only observable to human consciousness at that moment, because that was the moment that energy fell into the habitable spiral of perception, to where conscious crunching and space preparation equal
so you're saying it happened and we're observing it because we can see it now? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying for human consciousness to properly harmonize with reality, energy needs to be accelerating towards center at light speed. And so that's a certain distance away from a center of a greater structure. And so as energy fell into, you could say, the Schwarzschild radius of a black hole, that would be the moment of a Big Bang. Would be the moment the energy fell into the habitable spiral of perception. So consider our universe, or our entire experience within a black hole. We have a Schwarzschild radius. The moment the energy hit that line of acceleration towards center at light speed would be the moment of conscious awakening. It would be the moment when our consciousness would even properly harmonize with a waking universe.
Right. But so just simplify for me here, because humans weren't around at the Big Bang,
Right.
but we can now view the light that came from the like we could logically be able to see the moment of the Big Bang with our telescopes looking back in time. Are you saying it's because of that human consciousness in today's time looking back that is simultaneously creating that moment of Big Bang, and that's why it's real and that's why it's observable, because we're creating it through our observation?
Yes. The length, the size, the moment, and all of that is 100% related to your position and motion through the fluid of time. So what I'm saying is, let me do the share here. Like
I want to ask him this question too. This is a good one from Aaron.
If you want to ask right now, that might.
Yeah, I assume the human part of this could just as easily be other alien races. Humans aren't special in your philosophy?
Humans would be, we're special. Come on. I'm a special person. No, you're by like the way you're referring to it. Yeah, of course, we're life, and life is related to harmony of matter being created.
Right. So I guess the question is, if humans never manifested, but another alien civilization with consciousness manifested, is that the same thing, or do you define humans as being a important part of this?
Humans,
could it have been an alien race? Does it have to be humans? Does it have to be?
No, it doesn't have to be human, but it has to be something with a binary consciousness as the prime multiplier.
What is that? What do you mean by binary consciousness?
So our consciousness goes 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. So you could say the prime multiplier. So delta is 1, another range in delta is 2, theta is 4, alpha is 8, beta is 16, slow gamma. So that's human consciousness, and the prime multiplier. So 2 raised to the prime multiplier there would be 2, because you're doubling. But when it comes to harmonics within any system, there could also be a different system. Instead of being the prime multiplier of 2, it could be 3 or 5. So you could have your first harmonic be 1, your second one be 3, the next one be 9, and then the one after that be 27. And so for a prime so you could have different types of consciousness based off the prime multipliers that you're harmonizing with.
What do you think a consciousness like that would be like? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I drew pictures because every single density relates to bits of information, and so I have like these really cool fractal drawings of how much information they can receive, and their brains and their ability to harmonize with the universe is just fantastic compared to ours. Like, because you could have a prime consciousness of 5, and now imagine 6 steps of multiplying your prime number by 5. You're at 1,525, 125. You're picking up hertz at like 625. And so, that'd be fantastic is what I'm getting at. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the conscious experience of other animals here on Earth, like cats and dogs? Do you think that they're not conscious, or
I think
why are they
not
as we are?
I don't know. I mean, that's so amazing to me. That's why I say that humans, we have that extra spark, right? We have an extremely powerful mind, like so much more free will, you could say. That's the biggest difference between humans and animals, in my opinion, is that free will and that choice. And so that's why it's one of the biggest questions for me is, how much free will do we really have? How much choice is there really when you have a natural node of manifestation within a fluid of experience to begin with? Like, we're literally, the universe kind of naturally wants you to be somewhere to begin with. And like, every time you have a want, a don't want, an assumption or expectation, it temporarily will shift your quantum nature, and you'll have like a pacing. And so you create little vortices, but ultimately they all kind of fade out and you go back to your zero.
But couldn't you if you're an evolutionary biologist, couldn't you just explain that through humans having a prefrontal cortex as opposed to, and again, I think it's important to remember, like, we have to think about animals on a spectrum, right? Because there are a lot of animals that we're now discovering do have different relationships and perceptions of time that we always thought didn't. So we're constantly discovering new things about animals, but I'm just curious, like, you know, from an evolutionary standpoint, you know, one could easily just argue that it's the prefrontal cortex that makes humans different, as opposed to having, you know, a grandiose vision for what sort of consciousness we have and why we're special in the universe.
Definitely. And I mean, I'm not going to argue against that. And that's where I just literally say that my model is consciousness based.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right.
I thought this was a good question from Nathan from Calling All Beings. What are the core principles of this theory?
There's different realms of experience. Energy drifts inwards. As energy drifts inwards, it gains higher harmonics of conscious density. In order for inner energies to even harmonize properly, for there to be consciousness, outer realms of experience would need to have harmonized first. I have a drawing of that. Basically, if we're in this giant black hole and you're trying to create new harmonics of resonance, you end up realizing that there's different types of flow within the quantum state to begin with. Like there could be laminar regions or turbulent. Like in a river, there's areas of rapids, there's areas of smooth energy. So as our universe is orbiting this greater structure, based on the quality of the fluid is how quickly consciousness can evolve as it's drifting inward. And so you see that the outer realms of experience, call it the moon, the sun, the stars, or God, would need to have harmonized. I'm not going to say that, I don't even want to throw that word in there, would need to harmonize first before our realm of experience harmonizes. And so that's why I get into the point eventually that basically UAP theoretically could be a manifestation of human stillness, because the quantum future is 100% a relationship of our now moment. So the UAP that could theoretically, if they were coming from the future would always be changing based off of our now energy state. So that's just something to consider. You know, you've heard probably like time wars and each faction is trying to have a certain future come out. Mm-hmm. It's because our now state of existence is what creates their now quantum potentialities.
Some of my favorite kinds of science fiction.
I mean, I was going to say this whole theory sounds like season 2 of Loki. You should probably consider turning in a writing packet to Disney, because I think you'd be great you'd write some fun scripts on that show. Right. But I think I kind of understand what you're getting at. And again, I'm going back to that cigarette analogy, the cherry on the cigarette. Ash is the past, present is the cherry, future is what hasn't been smoked. And in that middle, right in the middle, you get bits of both.
Yep.
And so it almost sounds as if like the Big Bang happened long ago, but because we just perceived it now, we can see it now, or because we entered that harmonic resonance level. Now we see it. And so now we understand it. We could perceive it as we perceive all things. So that's kind of how I'm getting this a little bit. And so the idea of, I mean, what you just said there kind of rang for me. And the idea was, well, maybe that explains why ships change from decade to decade, for why we saw airships in the 1800 versus cigar shapes versus Tic Tacs versus triangles. It could be because we're getting different sort of, I want to say visions, but we get glimpses of this tech and this resonance when we, like you say, calm our consciousness, and then it allows it to appear because it's already been created, because it's all happening right now. All of it is happening right now. So am I kind of getting that?
Yeah, that's 100%. From the way I think you're getting it, for sure. Like our now state of consciousness determines the future state. And so whatever our now moment is what can even potentially come back from the future.
Michael, I see your face. What do you think?
It's like, this is the kind of stuff I love just pondering, right? And it's like, for me, and this is why, I asked, because I'm very much interested in exploring these thought experiments. I think it's fun. It's interesting. I think it's healthy for the human brain. I think it's just always so important that we remain as humble as possible when it comes to what we believe, right? Because these are fantastic ideas and thought experiments, but they're virtually unprovable. and that's okay, I think. But I think it's also fascinating that you're making a hypothesis. You're like, okay, I want to go build something where I can start to test these theories. I think that's, for me, this is all fun. Like I'm with it.
So could we talk about hardware? I'm sorry, rather, what were you gonna say?
Well, yeah, I was gonna, getting back to that interdimensional telescope.
Yeah,
let's say
the hardware
that
of
Alexei
it,
and Tony got $1 million and developed this. What would we see through that? Would we see, the DMT machine elves, or what would be the?
What would it look like? Would it look just like a regular telescope?
I think you could build it you could build it so many ways, but the way that makes the most sense right now, based off our technology, is to kind of mimic a Hadron Collider, but just keep it in a straight
talking about
line.
Trillions of dollars of funding now.
Right.
I could keep it busy for 2 years.
This is if I had what I wanted.
Jesus
right?
Christ! I hate
keep it in a straight line.
Hadron Collider. No worries.
The idea was we would need to get the energy that would normally exist at 1 mile away from, so it needs to be a 25-mile long tunnel, right? And it has to have these extremely powerful electromagnets around the entire circumference. But you would need to get the energy that normally exists at 1 mile away from your space and expand it all the way to 25 miles away, or 12 and a half miles away, sorry. And that would get you to the fast gamma layer of reality, right? So fast gamma also orbits at a different harmonic, so you would also need to create a counter rotation. So ideally, you want to stretch the fast gamma layer outward, slow down the harmonic spin of it, and now any normal video camera can literally look down a tunnel of white light, because your betaverse would have been contracted, pushed outwards towards the periphery, and you can look down a tunnel of white light and see another dimension. It would be another harmonic of resonance that harmonizes properly to create an actual experience, a physical experience.
What would we see in that other dimension? Would it, be like a DMT trip? We'd see psychedelic images, or what do you think we'd see?
That's why I don't know.
Right. And then how do you prove that? Like, that's the hardest part. Like, even if you are able to bring back these images to speculate that they are interdimensional images, is like, you're never like, how do you convince somebody of that versus they're just looking at some sort of extrapolate or some sort of light bouncing in ways that are just not understood?
So you would have to travel there, right? So that's where it gets into making like interdimensional technologies. And that's why I think a lot of the UAP we see aren't necessarily these ships, but they're more parts of a building that have the energy being, worked with in such the way that the actual building is kind of just going through space-time through that 5D vortex. It's not like an actual spaceship flying around. It's just going through the different layers. Does that make sense, right?
It's interesting.
I don't know if it makes sense, but it definitely is interesting. Yeah. And I think it's kind of goes along with this comment. Rather is DMT. Go ahead.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. You can never prove to science or to our physical world with things like DMT or things like meditation, or you have to use physical things, capture a physical picture. And so that's the greatest challenge, is to actually get that scientific evidence.
It almost sounds like you're trying to bottle a dream.
Right. It almost is, because it's a quantum state of our future that depends on our now state. So if we're literally looking into our future, but it's always changing, one person might see something different than another person just based off of some wants, don't wants, assumptions, or expectations that are like emulating outward from them. It's so weird to think about. But
rather, what are you gonna say?
Yeah, I don't know. My mind just flew. My thought flew off of the merry-go-round that my mind is doing right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I think most UAP use vortexes. I think there's that's kind of not proven, but it's well known, right? Like vortex energy is associated with UAP.
Well, with this theory though, they wouldn't be coming here with intent. It would just be that we're seeing them.
It would be a window into the next dimension.
Right. So it's like they might not even know that they're, or do you think they would have the technology to be aware, oh, we just slipped into this harmonic dimension. Everyone can see us now.
I think that they would see us almost like if we could see them through the tunnel, they could look up and see us through a tunnel and be like, "There's a UAP." You know what was that? You know,
Or
they
they'll
don't know
say,
about it.
"Uh-oh, the humans figured it out."
Right. At that point, you're actually looking through the windows through dimensions.
What do you got,
Well,
Ryder?
yeah, and I guess it does seem to me like it would be possible to prove these theories, even prove that if you're in a DMT trip or dreaming that you actually are in a different reality, if you were to somehow change, demonstrate a non-local effect in this reality, go into a dream and actually reach out and do some work in our reality. You think that that's at all possible or a potential way to, prove these theories?
Yeah, and I mean, if you really, yeah, I do, and I think it's really, I haven't done that yet. I mean, that's fascinating. You would have to go into like a delta or theta, or like you're saying, fast or slow gamma. So now your consciousness is in a different realm of reality. Physically mess around with it, like in your dreams or in your DMT trip, and see if any quantum changes happen. That would be extremely fascinating. And I don't know what kind of work the CIA has done, but I don't know if they've done that yet. That's wild.
Michael, let me ask you, because you've had a DMT trip, right?
I have not.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
No.
What? But on you, I know you've had psilocybin.
LSD.
Okay. See, I don't know the differences between these. I just say here DMT, and I think they're all kind of the same thing. But I mean, have you ever had an experience in that state? No, but do you? Okay, so then let me ask you this: do you think that experience is real, or do you think that's something that the mind is constructing? Do you think it's removing a filter and you're able to experience these things? Like, how do you quantify that when you do come across
it? It just depends on what time of day it is, right? So it's like like I mean, I go back and forth all the time about what is reality versus what is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And these are the things that are so challenging when it comes to psychedelic experience, meditation, because they can be incredibly personally transformative, but you don't know whether to trust that those visions are something beyond your own consciousness or if they're constructs of it. And so, while in that state, I'm 100% convinced that that is a reality that is far superior to my everyday waking reality. But when I'm not in those experiences, my logical, rational mind comes back and says, well, it's very possible that it's like leading the witness, right? Like, because the things you're thinking about, and when you think about psychedelics, one of the things that you want to ensure is that people have a proper set and setting, and you always want to be aware of the environment that those folks are in. And so if they're in a negative environment, they tend to have a negative trip, whether it's the environment or their internal mental state. And so if that's the case, then you have to at least entertain the thought or the idea that it is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So I am of two minds about it, just like I have a right brain and a left brain, a very analytical side of my mind and a very creative side of my mind. I think that I kind of, when I think about psychedelics, I kind of look at it from a similar perspective, where the short answer is I don't know, and the long answer is it depends.
Somebody said Grant Levac, not somebody. Grant Levac said DMT equals digging Mataluni's thinking. Jazz Shaw asked a question for you, Alexei. Is consciousness local or remote? And can we develop a test for that, you think?
We would have to work out a test. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I cut off what you said at first. Do you think it's remote or
Oh, it's fundamental to think that the consciousness that I have is different than the consciousness. So it's like, I like to say that the only thing that really separates us is egos and imagination. And that consciousness is fundamental. And then we have our egos and our imaginations. So it's similar along to like what Michael was just saying, to like where you have you kind of create it with your imagination. And the self-fulfilling prophecy, I think, is almost on point, because if you think about the raw experience of the universe before there's any mind, wants, don't wants, assumptions and expectations, it basically is so now you have your smooth field of energy, and then you put in humanity. We're all throwing in these little pebbles into the quantum state of our own expectations of reality and our own assumptions, if not consciously, subconsciously. And they all basically, you could say, massage the universe to create a synchronization that is our experience. So I think the self-fulfilling prophecy is in lines of it, but it has to be reasonable within everyone else's expectations.
I mean, to me, like I think there's value, even if it is to a certain extent a self-fulfilling prophecy, I don't find there to be that much danger in that, as long as you're setting yourself up for yourself and others around you up for success, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you do believe in this law of one, or you do believe that consciousness manifests reality. That's okay, as long as you're using that as a tool to better your life and the lives of others.
Yeah.
But the second that it becomes ego-driven and you need to convince others into believing what you believe, and that's where I have a big problem with a lot of religious thinking and things like that, is because in order for me to express my conviction for my religion or for my ideology, I need to convince you. But that really speaks to my lack of faith, not yours.
And insecurity in the self, ultimately, right?
Absolutely.
You're afraid to believe what you believe because someone else doesn't believe it too. I mean, that's the problem of society. That's the greatest issue society has to begin with. Yeah.
We figured it out. Wrap it up, boys.
Wrap it up, done.
Done and done. Just figured out how to fix everything.
Yeah.
All at the same time, yesterday, today, and now. I love it. Rather, did you have any other questions before we get Alexei out of here?
Yeah, nothing. A lot, but none. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I'm starting to feel like Rather's trying to stay out of trouble. Am I interpreting that correctly?
No. Rather's not trying to stay out of trouble.
Well,
yeah, no, I feel like I've raised some concerns. It's an interesting theory. It's definitely interesting to think about, and
I would love to prove it physically. I mean, like, I know the main issue, right, is consciousness or perception exists or reality exists without perception, or there is perception. I mean, at the end of the day, to say there's anything other than your perception, other than the conglomeration of perceptions, is to be making one of the biggest assumptions, because ultimately our perception is related to our manifestation, which is our velocity in relationship to a field of energy. So like our perception only exists in our frame of motion. Yeah, but there is a physical black hole or some type of raw energy of experience that exists. And I don't know if our tools will ever be advanced enough, right? Because the more emphasis we put on scientific technology, the less we'll actually ever evolve and gain higher senses that are required for mate selection, right? Because at what point do you stop evolving and gaining tools? I don't know. So the way I see it is like the more emphasis you put on technology and physical and making your eyes better, the less likely you will develop a new sense. But I don't know.
Well, it is interesting you say that, because when you think of somebody who does lose a sense, a different sense becomes more acute.
Right.
So there is this, it is interesting to think about that, like, and I think that's why so many, people believe in and revere the states of consciousness inside a meditative state, because you're able to, gain some really interesting perception that you never would have experienced relying on your senses.
Yeah.
We had a poll that I put up for the show, and the poll was, what would you rather have? A super yacht, super intelligence, super government access, or super good looks? Coming in at 8% is a super yacht. Nobody wants a super yacht. That's insane to me. Coming in second or third place is super good looks, which is also a shocker to me. I think that might be number one for me. And then coming in second is super government access. And then in first place with 62% of the vote is super intelligence. And the reason why I say this is because this guy right here comments, Bradley Voorhees guess, I guess I'll take the yacht since I kind of already have the rest.
Maybe. Sort of.
Humble as always.
Possibly.
Mean, this guy, you gotta love him. Bradley, say hello to Alexei. Alexei, say hello to Bradley. We should have a show with these two guys.
We got to bring these two together
and see what would come out of that discussion.
Like, it's either get the Falcon Labs and put this interdimensional telescope together.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's definitely a coin flip because we either Alexei and Brad will come out as best friends or mortal enemies. One of the two. There's no in between. I promise you that.
Yeah. Artisan Tony with a $5 donation says the Big Bang may have been a delusion.
Ooh.
It's interesting.
There are a lot of theories outside of the Big Bang that, you know, like not every physicist subscribes to the Big Bang theory. There are non-Big Bang theories out there.
Yeah, even the Big Bang doesn't. Yeah, go ahead, Alexei.
Oh, I was gonna say I would need to look into them, but at the same time, I don't want to look into them. But to not look into it, right, is like to not look into it is to be ignorant, but to look into it and believe it blindly is to also kind of
be ignorant. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to look into it, but not make it your truth, you know, until
if you do want to look into it, a book that I'd highly recommend is A Big Bang in a Little Room. And it talks about a lot of the cosmological theories that are out there. You know, one of them is that the Big Bang happened, but it wasn't a start of the universe. There was, you know, many different Big Bangs at other places, and they all expand the kind of local sphere of observable universe to people. So there's a lot of interesting thoughts out there.
Very cool.
Well, Alexei, that was a very interesting hour-and-a-half discussion, man. I'd like to know if you ever get it to a point where we can start testing this. That would be fun, and sort of what the results are from that. And I guess my last question before you get out of here is there anybody, because you say we a lot, so I'm curious, do you have a team of other folks that help you develop this tech or these theories or bounce these ideas off of, or is this kind of just you and your skate lab going, you know?
It's me, myself, and I.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to use a guy's name was Oscar. No, I'm joking, but that's like an acronym for the official skate case advertising representative. So no, yeah, it's just me. I talk to a lot of people. I engage conversations with a lot of intelligent people. So when I say we, it's more of a general what I believe, what I believe. You know,
we should get both of these guys, Bradley and Alexei, on Singularity Lab, because I think that would be fun.
Definitely. About it.
Well, Mr. Alexei Novitzky, thank you so damn much for coming aboard and getting weird with us here. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. It was a hard concept to wrap my brain around, but I think I explained it as best as I could to myself. And I thought
the analogy, the tessellation analogy with the Russian dolls, man. You just
even Deep Prasad, yeah, you know. So I like to feel smart every now and then. Well, before you get out of here, please tell everyone where they can find your work and bounce ideas off of you, if possible.
And so sorry, not to interrupt, but I just don't want you to dip out of here right after you do that. So go ahead and do that. But we have a super chat question for you after you're done with that.
Okay.
Well, the mother company is Looshes Labs, and so I have all my work at loosheslabs.com. And you know, that's where my contact information is and stuff. And actually, I built this for you too. It's a little UCR, right? A little UCR 3D.
Oh, cool!
Is that a giant LSD sugar cube?
Yeah,
no,
I think that's a TR3B.
No, it's not. It's a UAP.
I love it, man. Yeah. Is that 3D printed?
Yeah.
Holy cow!
I thought it'd be fun to do it last night, so I set it up, and it ended up working out okay.
Nice, man.
Small one.
Well, dude, send me one. I'm
gonna send it your way. I'm gonna ask for your address. If you could send, give me your address, I'll send it your way.
I definitely will. I love it, man. Alexei, you're a sweetheart. This is a last question here from Bradley Voorhees. Alexei, do you believe that our consciousness is energy running over the 2D holographic surface of a black hole, and when we die, our consciousness leaves the hologram as Hawking radiation?
That's actually a really good question. The way I see it is consciousness is like hanging on a string at a 90-degree angle, right? And it's literally processing through the fluid of time. So not to answer that, but yeah, I would say 3D and then 4D, or like 4D and 5D. I don't use the 2D, right? So if you look, because I mapped, consciousness has an orbit through time, and if you map the daily fluctuations of your consciousness, it literally mimics a gyroscope hanging on a string at a 90-degree angle, where it has a big orbit and a tight orbit, and then a big orbit and a tight orbit. So I think that consciousness is like a gyroscope hanging on a string at a 90-degree angle, and that when you pass, you enter a denser realm of experience. So I'm not sure about the second part with the Hawking's radiation, but that you would enter into a denser realm of experience.
Cool. Man, we got to get these two guys together, Mike.
Maybe the string gets cut and you start just gyroscopically flying through the fluid at a time until you finally land on like another harmonizing universe. I don't know.
Love it. All right, well, guys, check out Alexei's work at www.loosheslabs.com. I've got the link in the description below. Bradley says, "Cool, we need to talk." Definitely, I would love to see. I would love to see that conversation. I'd love to be a fly on the wall or somebody, almost like Avi Loeb's porch. But thank you so much, my friend. We'll see you soon. I appreciate your time, and yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.
Absolutely, nice to meet you, Alexei.
Thanks, Alexei.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Good seeing you, rather. Yeah.
Lou took the wrong person out.
I'm trying to figure out how to
did. There we go. There we go.
Yeah, Alexei,
you know what? You'd probably be better off.
Well, I think for the rest of the show, we'll...
All right, Alexei, I appreciate it, man. We'll see you soon.
See it.
All right, I got it right that time. Okay, man, that was mind-bending, that conversation.
That was fun.
Right?
I love conversations like this. Like everyone was like, they were like commenting on my Mataluni face, like my disbelief face. But like, yeah. I mean, granted, like I don't just like, if somebody feeds me a hypothesis, I'm not just going to believe it, but I do find it fascinating. But like, yeah, I mean,
well, yeah, and it was a fun conversation. You know, he wasn't getting defensive when challenged, and you know, a lot of it still is over my head, but it was a fun discussion, and I think they're interesting ideas.
And yeah, I mean, like, I thought you guys asked great questions, poked good holes in the argument. I was just trying to, anytime somebody like that comes on with that much information being bombarded at me, I'm so happy to have two guys like you, because then you guys could ask the questions that scientifically relate to the conversation, and then me, just the layman, kind of trying to wrap my brain around the entirety of what this person's saying. So I got to kind of just sit back and listen and come up with my stupid anecdotes, but I was just trying to make sense of it.
Well, I think it's important to remember that we're all laymen here.
Right. No, that's true too. But I feel like the both of you guys always have great scientific questions that relate to the subject. So that was fun. It was an interesting thought experiment. Yeah. And it kind of does explain, if again, a lot of these things are theories. Nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. Nobody has the facts on this topic. But it does kind of nicely fit this idea of why the tech people are seeing different kinds of either shapes,
that was
if we want to call it tech. Yeah. I was like, okay, maybe triangle. It's kind of like you see the difference between a Mercedes-Benz in the 1920s versus today. It's a spaceship compared to the 1920s. So imagine what a Mercedes-Benz is going to look like 100 years from now.
Right. I mean, the other argument, the materialistic argument, is that we see our current reality, and then we project that reality into the things that we see as well, right? So you literally just unmuted you were muted, and then you unmuted yourself to hawk that Luke.
I'm so sorry. That happened. You know what? In the over 300 shows that this channel has done, that might be the first time that's happened.
That's amazing.
So I apologize to the audience out there. Wow, that would have been gross. I got sinuses.
That's hilarious.
What can I do?
No, you're fine. It was just funny because it was like, it was mute.
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
I don't know, man.
We're talking about, the materialistic perspective on that is that we project what are known objects into the sky, right? When we see things, and it's like, you can, when you see a cloud, right, the human brain like stretches, like wraps its imagination around it, right?
I just blew someone's ears out. Sorry, Sparky Lady. Totally apologize to everyone out there. I am now mortified at myself. I am now like, I don't know. I'm completely all thumbs right now. I have no clue what to do. We still got 10 minutes for the show. Okay, so we do have a couple of clips that I wanted to share with you guys. This first one is of a UFO clip. I guess we'll label this UFO video of the month or bi-month because we don't. Well, I'm gonna try and do these more, but
is
this one in particular,
is this part of the show that I?
No, yeah, definitely. So this one in particular is kind of making the rounds. Jeremy Reese had written something or tweeted something about this video. I just saw it today on the Z100 New York radio show Twitter feed or something like that. And so it's getting a little play. Let's look at it and then we'll discuss.
Okay. This should be fun.
And just to explain to the radio audience, basically this is footage of two Black Hawk helicopters, allegedly, escorting a UFO across a very well-lit town. And this UFO is so bright that it is projecting light onto the city below. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Goes into a cloud and then disappears. It goes out of frame.
So it looks like there's one kind of black object in front and then kind of a big kind of bright orb in the middle.
So
and then another object that looks like the front, but it's blinking in the back.
Okay, so the black object in front is a Black Hawk chopper. The one with the light at the back is the second Black Hawk helicopter. Apparently, I think this went over a city in New York, if I'm not mistaken, or a town in New York State. And according to Jeremy, this was caught on surveillance footage. I found the source of the video. We'll look at it. But just first impressions from you guys. What do you think?
I mean, it's cool looking. I'm I'm such a skeptic these days. I'm just
I mean, look,
I don't know.
I thought it was bogus. Somebody, when I looked at the comments in the videos, somebody said it's 3 helicopters. The one in the middle is shining a spotlight, and that's kind of drowning out.
That actually makes that makes total sense.
Yeah. That's kind of what, but then the thing at the end is that he goes through this cloud at the end that it doesn't match any of the cloud formation that's going on in the rest of the video. To me, it looks bogus. I'll be honest with you. This doesn't look real to me.
And where did this come from?
Okay, so the source of this video is called Alien Secure. They've got almost 6,000 subs on YouTube, but with the video, there's no description. First of all, there's no description, there's no source, there's no noise, there's no sound to it at all. Somebody said in the comments here that it doesn't display any of the 5 observables, which is also true. But the thing that Jeremy Reese said is that this was over a major town, so expect different angles of this. If we get different angles from different security cameras, I'll be more than happy to sort of walk this back. But at first glance, I don't buy this one.
Yeah,
personally.
but it's super interesting. Like the theory about, because you are seeing the light flashing on the ground, so it would make sense that the physical object is unseen because it's being drowned out by its own light, its own what's the word for a giant searchlight or
spotlight. It's almost like it's providing its own light pollution, so you can't see the taillights on the craft because the light is so bright that it's getting drowned out by it essentially.
Everything in the comment section it either comes like to all out just anger
in our comment section
like not towards us but towards this being a legitimate video. It's just a wave between
well, I put the link in the chat, so if you guys want to go check it out yourself. I mean, this is the most viewed video on this account.
except for Bradley Voorhees.
Who thinks it's definitely
who believes it's definitely a UFO, and the reason that we see the light is because it's passing through the sunlight is on the other side of the wormhole. So everybody thinks it's BS except for Bradley.
Yeah. Well, I find it fascinating that 2 Black Hawk helicopters know exactly where that wormhole is going to be throughout the sky. That's, I mean, why would you not be afraid of being sucked in if that was the case?
Yeah.
Why would you?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how wormholes actually work, so I can't.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I figured you fall into them, something like that. We got about 5 minutes left. I want to do this last video real quick, but did you have a thought, rather?
Well, yeah, the weirdest thing to that was that the first helicopter wasn't blinking like the third was, and if they are 3 helicopters, it seems like that'd be trivial to verify on a flight tracker software. So I'm
Well,
curious
actually, Jeremy
about
Riz
that.
did verify the 2 Blackhawks on a track radar, on a flight radar system. So he did verify that the Blackhawks
That
were
is
really in
weird.
the sky.
It was just a third with a spotlight. Why wouldn't that be there?
That's true. So yeah, I mean, I think we just kind of have to wait and see. My first gut reaction is it doesn't feel real. But if there's flight tracking radar hits on it, if that's something that you could find, I got to go back and see what Jeremy posted about it. But he was very excited about it, and
I mean,
usually he doesn't share stuff like
Jeremy
this.
Reese was excited about it. Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Seemed to be, yeah. So anyway, all right, let's get on to this next video, because this is Representative Andre Carson had actually another thing that he said. This was posted by Dan Warren on his TikTok, so I thought it was cool. I wanted to share with you guys.
Brett? Well, I think that is always a consideration. The immediate concern is very twofold. One, this is a technology that we don't completely understand, and it seems to be defying our understanding of physics. It appears to be more advanced than our own technology, but that's never a good thing from a strategic point of view. There is an expectation among Americans that we stay on top of advancements in technology. And secondly, whoever's operating it or whoever's behind it, these aerial phenomena, seems to be keenly interested in our military capabilities. There's a tendency for the UAP sightings and developments to occur around military assets, especially, it seems, around our naval assets. And, that's enough to know that we need more information and really a better understanding. Well, I think the next part will be breaking down the stigma that exists, especially amongst legislators, particularly amongst pilots outside of Congress. But I think the next step is to do a deeper dive. I want to hold a public hearing as well, but we're not going to get the information we really need initially until we have classified briefings. And, as the chairman of that committee, my hope is to have a series of hearings, and one of them being a public hearing, so we can at least provide the information to the American public to the degree that will not compromise our national security, to give them some kind of resolve. And I think quell their thirst for this wonderful phenomenon that we've been talking about and movies have been made about for the past 7 or 8 decades.
What?
Yeah. Pretty wild. Pretty wild stuff. Listen, we're going to talk about this on the Discord. So check out the link to the Discord in the video below. We'll discuss it a little further. But I mean, this is the second time that Andre Carson has, within a week, mentioned this, and the first time he called it a possible, and yes, that these things could be of extraterrestrial origin. That was a possibility that a sitting congressman on many intelligence committees said.
That's wild.
So pretty wild. And he's calling for public hearings and also additional private committee hearings. So he wants to give people some sort of either closure or some sort of more information to quell the questions, to quell the curiosity.
I don't even think giving other people. I think he wants that for himself too. It sounds like.
Indeed. All right, you guys. Well, that is the show for today. I appreciate everybody coming to hang out. Before we get out of here, of course, I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes that you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. I want to say that we will be available on iTunes, Spotify as soon as the show is over. So if you want to listen to us on the road, you can do that. Leave us a rate and review. Thank you to the Patreon members, future Patreon members, and all the super chats that we got today. Truly appreciated it. Moderators and everybody who was in the chat today. I love you guys. We've got to the Discord, which will be there in about 15 to 20 minutes. So come hang out with us on the show. You can come talk, ask questions. We hang out for usually at least an hour. And then we've got links to the merch store, links for Michael, links for Rather, links for our guest Alexei Novitzky. And so, yeah, thank you to Bill, our producer from KGRADB. Other than that, you guys, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for coming aboard, getting weird with us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. Until next time, you guys, stay safe out there. We love you. Peace.
Word.
I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.